Do MOSFET amps sound as good as vacuum tube amps? This great question comes to us from Linus in Penang, Malaysia. He writes, does a MOSFET audio power stage sound as good as an all-tube power stage? If no, can the MOSFET power stage tuned to sound similar? Thanks so much, Linus. I'll get to your question in 3 shakes of a lamb's tail, but I wanted to show you, we're now in, well, it looks like I'm in jail. Like, help, let me out. These are the studs that just got up here for Music Room 2, which is going to be the new permanent home of the Infinity IRS-5, now sitting in Music Room 1 in our existing building. And I don't know how well you can see, so I'll describe it, and because I also have my podcast listeners who can't see squat. This is kind of a unique construction, and if on just first examining, you'll see that we're looking at just a row of studs like jail. It looks like a giant jail cell. What you probably can't see is that there's 2 rows of studs, one that's forward and one that's backwards. So the forward studs are the inner wall of this sound room, and the outer studs, the ones that are away from us, are the inner wall of the next sound room. So really what you have here is 2 kind of isolated walls. They are tied together at the bottom and the top, so it's not perfect, but it's a very good way of isolating one room from another with these dual sets of studs. Also, inner walls will all be double dry rock. So the drywall in here is going to be 2 layers of 5/8 drywall, and we'll probably use a product called Quiet Rock, but it's very expensive, so we're trying to figure out if we really need to or not. And then on top of this will be a big lid, but this is I think it's a foot larger than our existing room, and the same length but 1 foot wider. That's what it is. And we don't have the closet for the equipment, so I'm likely going to put the equipment over here, or maybe we'll put some of the source equipment over here. We have to decide all that, but it's pretty exciting. So this is Music Room 2, where the Infinity IRS-5 will live, connected by a hallway from Music Room 3. So MOSFET power amps. Well, I've talked about this quite a bit. I'm not a fan of tube power amp output stages, never have been. Now, before I get too many feathers ruffled on here, I will say that some of the best music I've ever heard is on a system with a tube power amplifier. Arnie Nudell, the founder of Infinity, my good friend and my mentor, consistently used these massive Sonic Frontier amplifiers. Sonic Frontier was a Canadian company. And I mean, these things were huge. They were almost as big as me. And they're just bristling with giant, I think they were KT-88s, but I don't remember. Anyway, just bristling with giant sets of output tubes, massive transformers on the output, and those sounded pretty damn good. In fact, the only amplifier that Arnie Nudell ever had in his system that was solid state was a MOSFET output stage that we make called the BHK 300s, which are monoblocks, designed by, of course, his good friend and my good friend as well, Bascom H. King. But for 45 years, Arnie would have nothing but tubes in his system. So you have to take what I say with a grain of salt and understand that you can't say tube output stages are bad, because for 40-something years they made some of the best sound in the world in Arnie's system and many other systems, right? The problem I have with them is that vacuum tubes are not great at delivering low impedances. They can deliver current, but they're not great at delivering low impedances. And in order to couple the vacuum tubes to the low impedance demands of a loudspeaker, you almost always have to have a transformer on the output. And that transformer will limit the bass response. It's not the ideal interface between the demanding loudspeaker and the vacuum tubes, and it works, but overall it's a compromise. If you look at it from an engineering perspective, it's just a damn compromise. And that compromise served us well for years and years and years. But it's met its match. Bascom proved it in his MOSFET output stage. Others have done the same with solid state or MOSFET. So my preference is to use a device that's specifically designed for current. MOSFETs are great to deliver current. Bipolars are great current valves. They really do a great job. And where a vacuum tube is best used, on the input. There's very few things that I know of. In fact, I'll go so far as to say I know of nothing better sounding and performing than a vacuum tube on the input of a power amplifier. That's why we put them on ours. I resisted it for years and years and years because vacuum tubes are a pain in the butt. They have limited life, they're microphonic, they can break, they have limited production. They're only today made pretty much in China and Russia. They're getting harder and harder to get. That all said, ain't nothing better. Vacuum tubes are the dog's bollocks when it comes to sound quality on the input of an amplifier, and that's where they belong, not in the output stage of a power amplifier. There, MOSFETs are far better. Great question, thank you. Talk to you tomorrow. Can't wait for all this to get done.